Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. A little midnight video for anybody who's still awake. I only do these videos this late at night if there's a good reason for it. There is a distinct possibility that any day now, the internet will just simply stop working. And I think that the time between any sort of kinetic conflict ensuing and that internet going off could be a long time. Now, let's break it all down. This Nord Stream situation is being underestimated by a lot of people, myself included. Think about what has just happened. A $10 billion project, which took years to build, which will never be rebuilt. Okay, so nothing like this will ever be rebuilt on the same scale between the parties that were involved. This was going to potentially ship hundreds of billions, if not probably trillions of dollars worth of fuel over time. Okay, maybe trillions is a little out there, but definitely hundreds of billions of dollars. And this was destroyed. This was an attack. Now, you better hope that it was the Russians who did that. I know the mainstream consensus is that the Russians did that, and of course, on the alternative media side, we're all like, well, that's preposterous. Why would the Russians ever do that? All I'm saying is that you better hope it was. Because if it wasn't, think of how substantial an act of war that was. $10 billion. And you can't even really put a price tag like that on it. Because you're talking about the time that it took to make it. And at today's prices, it would probably cost a lot more to make it. So imagine taking out $10 billion worth of military equipment, okay, in one go. That's basically what's happened, because there is a good chance that this pipeline doesn't get fixed. And even if it does get fixed, who's going to want to insure it? Who's going to want to, put their faith in it when we know that a bomb can simply blow it up? If Russia did not do this, or if Russia did not do this, then you can expect a retaliation soon. And that's when we start to get into the critical infrastructure war. That's when we start to get into large-scale cyber war and attacks on critical infrastructure. And anytime you have an attack of this magnitude, I mean, the magnitude of this attack, you need to understand, I think it's something like 30% of Europe's gas is going to would have flowed through Nord Stream. 30%. Imagine 30% of people in Europe not eating, and just the repercussions of industry, because Europe, of course, had some industry which the rest of the world relied on. Not only the gas, obviously, and that's just, it's really more like 40%, but there still are a couple other pipelines through Ukraine, but those will likely be shut off as this war is now destined to accelerate, and as Russia mobilizes to take over the entire country. It's just going to become a killing floor, unfortunately, for the military-industrial complex. Guys, as these attacks on critical infrastructure increase, the price of everything goes up, because that's what we use to make everything with. All of the stuff, okay, the price of gasoline, oil, it's about to blow again. It's about to pop. We had a little bit of relief with the whole strategic oil reserve. That's over. They're saying that they're going to stop drawing from that reserve. Watch what happens. I am almost 100% guaranteed that they're going to start taking more oil from that strategic oil reserve. And when that starts to get low, people are going to get squirrely. What's going to happen is we're going to see cyber attacks. The internet's going to go down. There's a good chance that this will just stop. It's going to stop one day. There's going to be a denial of service attack. People are going to start targeting satellites. There's going to be, some servers corrupted. Something is going to go on. Okay, the web domains or something crazy is going to happen. And when that happens, there's just going to be no more internet. You think the fog of war is thick now? Just wait till you have no information. For some people, that's probably a good thing, let's face it. But all jokes aside, the only phone line that's probably going to be working is a satellite uplink to the red line. That's between the President of the United States and Vladimir Putin. And Xi Jinping and whoever else has nuclear weapons. Liz Truss and Macron and I can't even remember what the Israeli guy's name is. Anyways, we're going to see the internet go down, the banking system's going to go down, the electrical grid's going to go down, and the natural gas is going to stop flowing or stop being regulated as efficiently in some places. Some places will still flow, but you still need the electrical grid to regulate that. You're going to have the gasoline pumps not working, and panic is going to ensue. I'm just saying that this is all within spitting distance. I'm not saying it's absolutely going to happen, but there's going to be a retaliation for Nord Stream. That was a major, major attack that cannot be underestimated. I mean, with one bomb, you took out, potentially, if they can't fix it, which they're saying they likely can't, and like I said, they probably won't want to, you took out a $10 billion piece of critical infrastructure, the lifeline, the literal lifeline to Germany and effectively an entire continent. Because, of course, the price of natural gas is regional, and that brings up the price of gas for everything. Now, this UK banking issue that's going on right now, where they've pivoted into, quantitative easing once again, and the lowering of interest rates, that's scary. Because that could mean that it's like one last hurrah before the whole house of cards falls. One last, grind to the finish. Okay? They're in trouble, and we're probably going to be in trouble in the not so distant future too. I just listened to a talk with, I can't remember his name. He's an older guy, but he's very, very wise. If I remember, I'll post the link in the description. But he's talking about how 2023, because right now, Europe has been able to fill their reservoirs with natural gas. So you're always hearing, they filled it up to 97% and this and that. Most of the countries have filled up their strategic reserves, if you will, of natural gas. Unfortunately, they still require the constant flow of gas. That's only supplementary. So that all of that gas they have stored will only meet like 30% of their needs. I'm just throwing a number out there, but it's far from 100%. So this means they have to dial down industry, dial everything down a lot in order to conserve and basically ensure that people don't starve and freeze to death this winter. But next year, Nord Stream ain't flowing anymore. And there's a good chance that the other pipelines flowing through Ukraine, they're going to stop when that war flares up too. And that means all of the gas flowing through Europe, with the exception of the Turkish pipeline, is done, kaput. That means next year is going to be hell. Can you imagine the panic that is going to ensue? They're going to have to try to make up for the loss in liquefied natural gas in this Israeli pipeline that is probably doomed to fail because it's in a potential hot zone. It's nowhere near enough to meet all the needs of Europe. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket. It's a joke, to be brutally honest. It's not going to do anything. It might help them survive, but it's not going to help them thrive. And the problem is, guys, is when you start seeing these critical infrastructure attacks heat up, you're going to start to be putting people in a situation where they're going to have to do anything, even if that means complying with orders that they otherwise might not comply with. And this is when you get into war economy rationing. This is when it gets freaky and dystopian, because you're going to have a situation where, like, imagine if the lights go out in Canada in the middle of winter. That's, on the one hand, really bad, but it also gives the government a bit of leverage to say, hey, if you want heat, you need to do what we tell you. Okay? So there is a possibility that will be used for control purposes, to keep people in line. And this rationing may well and these attacks on critical infrastructure, and I'm not saying that, I'm not, getting tinfoily on you guys and saying that they're doing this on purpose. I'm just saying that there's going to probably be retaliation for that Nord Stream. That's not something you just let slide. Think about it. And I don't think it's going to be like some ham-fisted, sloppy retaliation. I think it's going to be a calculated thing. If the Russians didn't do that to themselves, and I know, you guys know, I try to look at all sides of the story. If they haven't done it, then that means we're going to get something back. And when we get something back, that means we're going to send something back their way. And it's going to escalate just like that. Now, hopefully it stays on the level of cyber, and it stays on the level of, just the targeting of critical infrastructure. But you need to understand that's a massive declaration of war. That's worse than killing 1,000 tanks, a $10 billion pipeline. That's worse than us killing probably hundreds of thousands of their people, because it's not just the money, it's what it can do, right? So this is why 2023 is likely going to be hell. People don't realize it yet. What you can buy for $1 today is probably going to cost you $2, which I know you can't buy much with $1 nowadays. It's probably going to cost you $2 in a couple years' time. It's just a reality. The whole energy infrastructure could really just start to collapse from this point in, if this is the route we're going to take with World War. And so, like I'm saying, it's not going to be the bombs start dropping, all of a sudden, DEFCON 1, and there's nuclear explosions at the missile silos and maybe even a major city. It's not just going to jump right to that. Before we see that, we will see cyber attacks. We will see attacks on critical infrastructure. The price of everything goes through the roof. The government declares martial law. We go into war mode. They say, if you want to eat and if you want heat, then you got to get on your feet. It's a bad rhyme. I don't know. If you guys can think of something else, let me know. That means that we are going to be forced, or not me, because, we have contingency plans as preppers, but a lot of people will be forced to do the government's bidding when it all goes down. And maybe, that's why I'm saying it's kind of a double-edged sword for the government, because on the one hand, they get more power, but on the other hand, they're now fighting a war. And as much as you could argue you might need a war economy to get us out of this situation that our fiat-based monetary system has created, by and large, that's probably the only way out. That's how we reindustrialize, is by starting up just kind of how we did in World War II. The industry comes back. Necessity is the mother of all creation. We need to build tanks, so we kickstart industry. All hands on deck. There's no other jobs but making bullets and weapons. That's where we go, right? So, and when we're doing this, when we're going down this road, we're going to start peeling back the layers of this nutty society that we've created, that is, this degenerative culture. In so many ways, the culture is just so degenerative. We're going to start peeling the layers back of that nonsense. And we're going to see human nature reveal itself again. And it's going to be scary to a lot of people, because there's so many people who are so far removed from any major global calamity, generations removed, myself included. But at least I'm, smart enough to be aware that these things can happen. The problem is most people don't understand human psychology. I understand it, and I still succumb to it. You know what I'm saying? That's what one of my social psychological profs told me once. He's like, even though I understand all of the art of the sale, or all the techniques that a salesman will use on me, and the manipulative techniques, I still fall for it because I'm human. But the people who don't even realize it's happening fall for it a lot worse. So what I would encourage people to do is have some analog mode of communication, be it a simple Baofeng radio, a simple ham radio. You don't need the massive setup or anything like that. When the shit hits the fan, yes, there are laws that prevent you from utilizing ham frequencies, or amateur radio frequencies. But, in emergency situations, technically, it depends. There's a bit of a gray area with emergency, and your laws are going to differ depending on where you live. But it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, is what I'm saying. So whether you have a license or not, get some sort of analog mode of communication, walkie-talkies, just shortwave radio, so you can get signals from long distances, because you never know. You're local, especially if you're way out in the boondocks like I am. I doubt our government is going to know a whole hell of a lot, and that's going to be the new internet, because we're not going to be globally connected, especially if some of these undersea cables get cut. We're going to just lose communication. There's going to be some satellite communication, but communication could be drastically restricted. And of course, the government would likely regulate it as well if we go into war mode, just due to the fact that it's going to be weaponized by the other side. There will be lots of misinformation and disinformation. And we're reaching that point where, guys, I could just go offline, and one day you might just not see me, and you might just not see anything online for that matter, except that sign that Google says can't connect, right? So cherish the days right now. Every day, every hour that you have right now is worth 100 hours of SHTF. Okay, every dollar that you have right now is probably worth $1,000, after it goes down. Because the things we can do right now, are going to seem like magic if all this stuff actually happens. So just stock up. I do think that right now, being in cash, you could say that, the American dollar is strong, but what is it buying? That's the problem, is that you still have inflation to contend with. Sure, the American dollar is the best performing currency because it's all we have left. And once that falls, which it very well may, because of the whole nuclear blackmail situation, and the people in charge know that on a strategic level, we are outgunned from a nuclear perspective. We are totally outgunned. If you haven't watched that video we just did with David Pine, he explains how even with if it's missile defense or strategic nuclear weapons, the nuclear triad, the mobile ICBMs, in all capabilities, we're pretty much screwed if this goes nuclear. And that is why Putin will continue to leverage that, to leverage that threat. That's why we're not in the fight right now. That's why somebody's got to put their nuts on the table. And I hate to say it, because it seems like it would inevitably spiral to a nuclear situation on the strategic level. But before it does that, it's a war on critical infrastructure, and that's already started. And that shit is scary. The war has already started. That attack on that pipeline, it's not just, we attacked the pipeline. That's one of the biggest pipelines ever built, one of the most expensive, one of the most substantial pipelines ever built. Not just one, 3 or 2 of them, and 2 lines on one of them. Actually 4. There was 4 detonations. So that's a serious act of war to whoever did it. Hope the Russians did it to themselves. And I will say that the Russians, if they didn't do it, and obviously they would know if they did it or not, if they didn't do, unless somebody within their own government was trying to mess with them, and there was some division there, I doubt that, you would think they would be more upset. And there didn't seem to be a lot of upset people in that what was I can't remember what the institution was that they were in where he gave that speech today. But there wasn't a very aggressive pushback against NATO. There was like, okay, they took it to the UN and they said, you need to investigate this. And maybe that's just their professionalism. I don't know. But it seems like they would be screaming a lot louder, if they were really concerned about it. Maybe they weren't concerned about it because they knew it was just never going to get turned on again. Maybe. But we're underestimating a lot right now. I mean, it's just like, $10 billion pipeline got blown up. That's huge. That's such a big thing, guys. And we're going to see massive retaliation as a result of it. But I'm not sure if they're going to retaliate on us, or if they're going to retaliate in Ukraine, or if they're going to retaliate in Europe somewhere. But somebody's getting something, because they can't let that slide either, right? They know if they let that slide, then it's going to happen somewhere else. So something is coming back at us. And then when that thing comes back at us, we're going to send it back to them. They're going to full send back to us, and it's going to keep escalating like that. Then it could potentially escalate to the nuclear level. Just a tactical nuke, a demonstration. Then what does NATO do? Well, NATO has to do something. NATO's going to send something. They got to do something, right? And so long as that's something they do, the Russians are not overly threatened by it and don't feel that they need to escalate after that, that could be where things calm down. But it's very doubtful that's going to happen. And all this talk about we need to go back to the negotiating table on strategic arms, this is exactly what you would see before a major escalation to DEFCON 2, is you would see them talking about, we gotta get some deal because we're getting there. Like if we weren't getting to that level, you wouldn't hear talks about the start a strategic arms reduction treaty and things like that, because it wouldn't be, a huge deal. But all I'm saying is, me personally, if I don't have a dime in the bank and that is in stuff, real estate, anything, you're probably better off. Gotta say probably, and that's just me. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I gotta go, and congratulations if you watch this video before Saturday morning. You are hardcore. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.